Hey, this is Leo for Actualized.org. And in this video, we're going to take a look at an interesting question. How important is luck in becoming successful? Luck and success. These two things, a lot of times we believe, go hand in hand. If you read stories of people who are extraordinarily successful, like rich people, politicians, visionaries throughout history, inventors, stuff like that, one of the things you tend to see, if you read a lot of biographies, one of the things you see is that some of these people had some extraordinary circumstances happen in life. They were born in a very particular time, in a particular country, in a particular circumstance that was just very, very unique. And we tend to think to ourselves like, well, I don't have those same circumstances. I'm not as lucky as some of these other people are. So I can't be as successful as some of these people are. And I used to fall into this trap myself too. In fact, when I was in college, I wanted to become an aerospace engineer. That's when I just started college. That was my first major. And so I was studying really hard. I was really serious about it. And I was a good student. So for me, the vision was not just an aerospace engineer, but I wanted to work on something important inside of aerospace. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool? We're probably going to be going to Mars or to some other planets in the solar system over the next 20 or 30 or 40 years of my lifetime. So I thought that would be cool to participate in that. So I want to be someone who's working on that kind of project. And even though I had this vision, one of the immediate thoughts that came to me is like, oh, but wait, what are the chances that I'll actually be able to work on a project like that? That seems like a pretty rare opportunity. And one of the things I remember, I was talking to my dad and I said, well, I want to work for NASA on a project like going to Mars, maybe build some sort of rocket ship to do that. And then I said to him, but what are the chances that I'll get hired to work at NASA on this project? And I told him, probably 1 in 1,000. I mean, I don't know how many engineers apply to NASA for those kinds of positions. I never actually researched it. But in my mind, I was saying, probably 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100. But those are pretty bad odds. Why would I put all this work and effort, building myself as an engineer, taking all these hard classes, and then developing myself even further? Why would I do all that if I only had 1 in 1,000 chance or 1 in 100 chance to work on my dream career and my dream project? And so that got me a little bummed out. But he told me, no, you don't need to worry about that. If you want to work on that project, you'll be able to make it happen. And so I just kind of took him on his word, and then I continued with that. Eventually, I ended up switching out of aerospace engineering, went into something else. But the point here being is that I think that this is something that we all go through, especially when we try to pursue our life purpose. Whenever you identify for yourself what that dream of yours is, maybe it's starting some sort of business, very ambitious, maybe taking your career in some very ambitious direction. You have this idea, but then your mind, it plays tricks on you, and the first thing it says that, wait a minute, what is the chance that this is actually going to happen? Can it actually happen? And if you're particularly ambitious, and your life purpose is taking you into a particularly ambitious trajectory in your life, you have a really big dream, then this is going to worry you. This is going to bother you. And honestly, if you have a dream such as becoming a millionaire or a billionaire or becoming an astronaut, the president of the United States, or maybe you want to become a best-selling author, selling tens of millions of books, or maybe you want to become a movie star. So these kinds of positions, these tend to be limited and rare positions in life. If you just want to become a doctor, there's millions of doctors. You can become a doctor pretty much no problem. You're guaranteed that if you go and study at being a doctor, you'll become a doctor. I mean, it's difficult work, but there's a certain guarantee in doing that. Whereas if you want to become an astronaut, it's a little bit different. Because you can go and train to become an astronaut, but there's literally only so many astronauts. I don't know how many there are, maybe 50, maybe 100 of them at any given point. There's not that many of them. So what are the chances that you're actually going to get out to fly out into space? Probably not that great. Also, something like becoming president of the United States, let's say, or president of your country, there's only one of those. Maybe throughout your entire lifetime, there will be 5 or 10 of those at most. So that means that your chances are like you got to take one of those slots, and you're competing against potentially millions of people. So your odds are very, very low in these kinds of positions. You might say the same thing of becoming a movie star or a really, really successful entrepreneur. To become a millionaire, what are the odds of that? Probably like 1 in a million, or maybe 1 in 100,000, if you just take like ordinary statistics. So when you're up against these kinds of obstacles, it looks grim. It looks like, why go out there and take on this risk? It seems too risky. And when I was younger, before I started doing personal development, this always bothered me, this idea of the odds. The odds are always against me. And in the back of my mind, I would always be thinking, oh man, the odds are so terrible against my success. So let's take a look, luck and success. Actually, what you're going to discover if you do personal development is you're going to discover that luck is not that important to being successful. And I'm going to tell you why exactly right here. Luck for the average person tends to average out. So I tend to think of luck as positive luck and negative luck. So positive luck would be something like, let's say you receive a $3,000 tax refund that you didn't expect in the mail. You just get a $3,000 check. Like, man, that's nice. That year I got an extra $3,000, so that's like really good luck, you're going to tell yourself. So let's say you get that. You get that 1 year. The next year, usually this stuff averages out. So what's going to happen is maybe something that's going to happen to you like a kitchen fire. Your kitchen catches on fire. You got some kitchen damage. You're going to have to spend $1,000 to repair it. So maybe 1 year you earn $1,000 or $3,000. The next year, it might cost you a couple $1,000s to repair some damage that happened because of some accident. And so I tend to believe, and I like this mindset that luck averages out, the positive and the negative. Now, of course, there are extraordinarily lucky people who win lotteries and people who have like amazing stuff happen to them in their business career, etc. And then, of course, you've also got people who are extremely unlucky, lots of negative luck. Maybe they get onto a horrible car accident. Maybe their house burned down. Maybe they got some sort of debilitating disease, cancer, this kind of stuff. So there's no denying that, of course, there's these extremes. But I think that you don't want to plan your life as though these extremes are going to happen to you. Because honestly, what happens to the average person, the most likely thing that's going to happen to you in your life is that you're probably going to live for a good 60 or 70 years. And if you're going to die of something, it's probably going to be of obesity, heart disease, or cancer, or some sort of disease that happens much later in life, not early in life. And if you're going to have catastrophes in your life, they're going to be minor catastrophes, not major catastrophes. So sure, I think the average person has good luck a couple of years in their whole life, like really, really good luck, and sometimes they have really bad luck. But these are not like the most catastrophic and extreme sorts of good and bad luck. And they tend to average out. So I think this idea that you need to worry about luck is that you just don't need to worry about it very much. It's going to tend to average out for your whole life. And so the mindset that I want you to adopt is that you're just average. You're the average person. You're going to live an average life. You're going to have average luck. Now, this might seem kind of depressing, but actually this is a really positive thing. Because if you have average luck, what does that mean? That means that your success is just grounded in your work and in your effort. It's not grounded in being lucky. It's not grounded in going to some sort of extraordinary job interview and then happening to land that job. It's not grounded in you sitting in some cafe somewhere and then some movie director accidentally spots you and thinks that you'd be perfect for the new next blockbuster movie, and then you get this amazing role just by accident, by fluke luck. Like, even though this stuff might happen, it's not a good idea to plan for. It's bad strategy, basically. If you're going to be planning for a military campaign, let's say, in fighting a major war, it would be reckless of the general who's leading that campaign to say, well, you know what, we're just going to expect really good luck on the battlefield. Or also, it wouldn't be very prudent for him to say, well, what if everything goes horribly wrong and horribly against us, and then plan his strategy based on the worst possible odds. It would be bad in both cases. He'd want to kind of go down the middle of the road, anticipating that he'd have average luck on the battlefield, and so he's going to plan according to average luck, and then if that doesn't go his way, then he'll kind of adapt on the fly. So that's what I want you to assume here. And the nice thing about this is that this forces you to adopt this mastery mindset. The mastery mindset is that you can really work to master something in your life. And this has been shown by lots of research that they've done on all the really successful people in life. Most successful people, they don't get successful by luck, by accident. People like Mozart and Tiger Woods and the best Hollywood actors that you know, and the most successful business people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, like these types of people, they're not just lucky. And you might say, well, but what about Bill Gates? Bill Gates was born in a very particular time in history, right at this perfect time where by the time he was growing up, he had all this experience with computers, and he was able to start Microsoft just at that perfect window of opportunity where you could still create an operating system that could become a monopoly. That's basically what Microsoft is now, is a monopoly on operating systems. And you can't just go and start a new operating system nowadays. It'd be very difficult because the market is totally overcrowded. And when I read business books when I was younger, this is one of the things that worried me, is I was thinking to myself, but like all these amazing business people, it seems like they all capitalize on these very rare opportunities that no longer exist for me. Nowadays, I can't create a new operating system. It doesn't work. Nowadays, I can't create a new Google. It wouldn't work because that market is saturated. So what am I to do? How am I going to make my success? The thing here is that it's not just that these people were lucky. Yes, these people had opportunities that they really seized on and they made the most of them. And I'm going to talk about that later in the video. It's about seizing on opportunities. I think that's really important. When you seize an opportunity, it makes it look as though you were extraordinarily lucky, but that's not really the case. You prepared for it. So all these amazing people that I talked about, and anyone else that you can bring to mind, it's not that they just fell into it. They don't fall into success. They work really, really hard, and then they capitalize on those opportunities. And that's the opportunity here for you, is to do that by committing to investing lots and lots of time and effort in training yourself to become really, really skilled in something. That's what life purpose for me is about. It's about finding that one thing that you're going to spend 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours of your life doing. Because as you do that, you become so proficient, so expert at it, that luck tends to come your way. It tends to draw it in. You become more capable than anyone else around you to seize on those amazing opportunities. And that's what you're going to find with people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs and amazing musicians and composers and movie stars, is that yes, they might have had those amazing opportunities, but really they worked hard on themselves in order to seize those opportunities. And they didn't just do it once, but they did it repeatedly, right? Otherwise, they kind of become a one-hit wonder. And then we hear that one amazing song or that one amazing business, but then we forget about that person. The people that we really remember aren't the one-hit wonders. They're the really consistent geniuses in their field. And the way to do that is not through luck. That's through hardcore practice and adopting this mastery mindset. There is something to be said about the fact that there are certain situations and scenarios in life that aren't really suited to this. So for example, winning the lottery, or winning a giant poker tournament, or going on a contest like American Idol and being the one out of all the millions of people that compete there, from the very beginning of the stages all the way up to the very end, to be like one in the million person that wins American Idol, or some other kind of rare position like this. See, putting yourself in those situations, you got to be smart about that. You don't want to do that. I see that a lot of people are like eager to jump on board with that. So there's a difference between something I call one avenue versus a million avenues. So, for example, with American Idol, if your dream is to become successful and to become recognized through American Idol, that's like one avenue, right? You've got only one way to succeed at that. So you've got this amazing, ambitious goal, and you might say, well, that's my dream goal, that's my passion. And so I would say, go follow your passion. But then what happens is that you go follow your passion, and you fail catastrophically. Because the problem is that, yes, you had this passion, and that's the good part, but you were foolish and naive in the way that you pursued it. Basically, you chose a passion that can only be achieved and arrived at through one avenue. That limits your chances. So, see, passion alone isn't enough to make you succeed. You have to also be strategic and smart about how you kind of position and pursue that passion. The logistics matter here. So, what's the alternative to the one path? Well, the alternative to the one path is to have a goal that has many paths. The more paths, the better, because that allows you to kind of skirt obstacles as they inevitably come up. So, for example, if you just set the goal for yourself to become a millionaire, now, even though the odds of becoming a millionaire are maybe 1 in 100,000 or 1 in a million, it doesn't really matter because you can easily beat those odds with the determination you're going to put forward, and also because becoming a millionaire, that's a million path strategy. There's a million avenues for becoming a millionaire. Literally, there's a million different types of businesses you could start. There's probably even hundreds of ways of becoming a millionaire, even within one particular niche in the market. So let's say you wanted to become a millionaire in the fast food industry. Well, there's probably at least 100 different ways that you can do that. And that's what you want. You want the opportunities. You want the avenues. There's not just one way. Something where there's only one way, that's really, really limiting you and setting you up for long-term failure. So try to avoid it in your life. If you have a big dream, make sure that there's plenty of different ways you can go about it. And don't be so narrow-minded that you have these blinders on and you say to yourself, well, I want this dream here and I want it this way, my way, and no other way. Because what that does is that limits you. It limits your creativity. And also, one of the things you notice about some of these most successful people, like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and stuff, these people, they themselves couldn't exactly predict, if you asked them at the beginning of their careers, they couldn't tell you how they're going to get to where they want to get to. Right? Steve Jobs, when he started, he didn't know that he was going to be making iPhones or iPads. Like, there's no way he could have conceived that 30 years ago. And when Bill Gates started, he didn't know that he would be running this billion-dollar company that had a monopoly on operating systems. He just knew that he went into computers, and then something started coming out of that because he was able to improvise and work on the fly. And also, he wasn't like dead set on just making one thing work. He would have been comfortable with anything working within that, within that area of that domain that he wanted to master in business. So this is what tends to happen, is that you don't always know where life will take you, and you have to be willing to adapt and be flexible in your approach. That doesn't mean that you don't have a really ambitious goal. You can have a very ambitious goal. Just be open to other possibilities, and in fact, a lot of times what happens is that this isn't a bad thing, this is a good thing. Because you might have one ambitious goal, and then as you're pursuing it, you might see, well, maybe this thing is going to fail, it's not going to work. But then you see even a more ambitious goal, and then you go for that, and you end up even better than you originally planned. But at the beginning, you could never foresee that that new thing would open up for you. And this is especially true, for example, in business. It's especially true if you're doing something on the cutting edge. So if you're on the cutting edge of art, if you're on the cutting edge of music, if you're on the cutting edge of technology and business, then you just can't foresee this stuff. And you have to be comfortable with being uncertain and still going forward and still being passionate about this. There's this mindset difference that I see between successful people and unsuccessful people. Really successful people, they are creators. Less successful people are competitors. Competitors put themselves in these kind of scenarios in life where they have to compete other people in order to win. So for example, a perfect example of this is American Idol. American Idol is all about competition. That means that you can't really create much within American Idol. Sure, you're creating, let's say, your song, and you're creating your dance moves, and you're creating the way that you're singing it in your style. Yes, that's the creative part. But in the end, yes, you're creating all that stuff, but then your creativity has to go head-to-head with somebody else's creativity, and only one of you is going to win. Just because of the artificial way in which this contest is kind of designed. So when you put yourself in that kind of scenario where only one person will win out of hundreds or millions, then it's like you're really limiting your odds. Whereas if you just, for example, go into business for yourself and you're open about the different possibilities of your business, maybe you're even open to going into one industry and then switching industries when you see that there's something better out there than this original industry that you started with. In that scenario, it's not this win-lose situation. You're not necessarily competing. And now you might say, but Leo, in business, there's a lot of competition. And that's true, businesses do compete, but it's not the same kind of rigged contest scenario, which is much more limited like American Idol. Because in the end, in business, you can actually create so much value, you can create a new brand, you can create a new technology, which isn't necessarily going to steal business from other people. It can actually create new customers. It can create new entire markets and industries. And so there's like, the pie isn't limited. It's not like you're just taking one piece of the pie, you're growing the pie. And that's the difference between this creator and competitor mindset. And I think that's very important, not to be a creator in life. Because when you make yourself a creator, that makes you very anxious and makes you very stressed all the time because you're constantly looking over your shoulder. And I encountered this problem with my first business. I was in a business where I wasn't able to be a creator, I had to compete because we were competing for literally limited slots on search engines. So our business was trying to rank websites really high on search engines through internet marketing. Now, when you're doing that, there's only so many positions on the search result pages on Google, for example. So there's only 10 slots on the first page. And really, the top 3 slots are the most important. So if you don't hit one of those top 3 slots on a Google page, which everybody is, of course, trying to hit, all your competitors, then you're not going to be making any money, you're not going to be successful. So this stressed me a lot because I felt like I was competing against everybody else, and I wasn't just able to focus on creating the stuff that I wanted, which is very different than what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing right now, I don't feel like I have to compete so much. There's still an element of competition. There's other people on YouTube who are making self-help videos. There's a million self-help authors out there, so I'm competing against them to some extent. But it's not the same because I feel like I'm kind of growing the pie with my videos, with my business, and it's much more satisfying, less stressful, because I know that I can actually kind of grow a new niche, a new industry, like grow new customers just through my passion, through my style that wouldn't have existed otherwise. And that's how you have to try to position yourself. So I think this is a good discussion. A good discussion if you really want to start to pursue your life purpose, you're not really sure how, you're afraid to do it, and you have some of these limiting beliefs. This is one of the limiting beliefs that I had, this thing between luck, this difference between luck and success. And my ultimate message here is just that you want to really take ownership here. Stop giving your power away to other people, other businesses, your employers, because the strategy that I pursue nowadays in my life is trying to remove as much randomness as I can. I don't want a strategy for my life where I'm relying on luck. That's why I don't care about things like lottery. I don't care about things like gambling. I don't really care about going into business where I have to compete head-to-head really hard with somebody. I don't care about entering some sort of contest where I'm going to get a bunch of freebies if I win. Because this stuff to me, it's just like noise. It's so much better to just focus on creating the thing that you want, being really certain about what you're going for, and then just give it your all. I think that that's your best chance of success. And you know what? Along that way, what's going to happen is you're going to see opportunities. As you're working really hard on yourself to create this amazing thing that's independent of any opportunities that come. You're just working on it. That's great. Now an opportunity comes by, let's say a couple of years later. You're on this narrow road, you see this amazing opportunity, you can ask yourself, do I want to seize it? Is it a good opportunity? When you see it, it's a great opportunity. You have the skills because you've been working so hard on this business that you're trying to master. You've got the skills, so now you can tap into this opportunity. And maybe it's going to be good, maybe it's going to fail. If it fails, you can get back on track. If it doesn't, then you're on your path to success. Now your track might shift a little bit, but you're still going ahead and you're still being creative. And so I think that this is ultimately the approach that you want to take with your success. And what you're going to find, I think, it's really amazing. When you buckle down and you work on improving yourself, building up your inner resources, doing personal development, also working on mastering your career or whatever business you're in, when you're doing that, opportunities almost magically, that thing that they say about law of attraction, just stuff like starts coming to you when you're really focused and you know what you want in life. Well, that's very true. And I don't think that this is some sort of magical, superstitious kind of thing. It's just simply that when you're very prepared, you're able to see opportunities and seize opportunities. Opportunities are around us everywhere, despite what it might seem. I know when I started with my business, I thought, man, like there's so little opportunities nowadays compared to what there was before. But actually that's not true at all. That's a limiting belief. It's just that you have to have a certain lens that you're looking through to spot the opportunities. Once you get the right lenses in your own mind, we're talking about beliefs and mindsets. Once you get those correct lenses, and part of that comes with doing lots of training and knowing exactly what you want very long term in your life, then you start to see all the little opportunities that are everywhere. And in fact, what's going to happen is there's going to be way more opportunities than you have time to seize. So you're going to be left with a quality problem, which is cherry picking the best of the best of the best of those opportunities and only taking that 1 or 2 opportunities per year and really seizing on it. And that's a really great position to be in life. So that's my message to you. Train yourself hard. Don't worry about luck, and opportunities will come, and you can be successful even when the odds are really, really against you. Because even though your chances of becoming a millionaire might be 1 in a million, that's not actually the case when you put hard work into your goal. Just because you set the mission of becoming a millionaire already, that puts you in the top 1% of all the people that are out there. Because the average person has never set that vision for himself. Not seriously, they just wish about it. They wish about being rich, but they're not really serious and determined about it. So just by setting that intention, already you're in the top 1%. And then if you go and you pick a particular industry where you want to start a business and you start finding business mentors, reading business books, you start playing around and tinkering and starting your own little businesses, that already puts you in the next 1% of the 1% that you're already in. So already you're cutting out another 99 out of 100 people by doing that. And so as you go and you invest more and more and more time and effort and intelligence into what you're doing with your business, the odds all of a sudden, they really, really improve in your favor. And the more and more you work, the better the odds get. And by that point, it's no matter luck. It's all about the effort that you've put in. And every successful person, even though they acknowledge all the amazing opportunities and amazing people that came along in their life, in the back of their mind, I think they also are very proud about how much effort they put forward. Because when you do something like that, like you start an amazing business, or you just like kick ass in your career, what you discover is that, man, like I have to work so hard to make it happen. There's no luck involved. It's really, really hard work. Every day I have to get up and I have to struggle, stay very, very focused on my objectives. And when I do that, I see that success comes to me. And when I don't do that, I fall off track. I see that no amount of luck can ever help me. So when you finally do achieve that amazing objective of yours and you reach those dreams, you're going to feel really good inside because it wasn't by sheer luck that you did it. You did it by all the preparation and the hard work. All right, this is Leo. I'm signing off. Go ahead and post me your comments down below. Like this video too. Click the like button for me if you liked it. And also throw it on Facebook, share it with a buddy, with a friend so that these videos spread around. And finally, come and sign up to my newsletter, Actualized.org, right here. It's a free newsletter. I release new videos every week. I have lots of cool exclusive content that I have planned in the months ahead. So make sure you sign up for that. The reason you want to do that is because I'm really excited and passionate about giving you the mindsets you need to master your life. Just like the mindset we talked about here, success versus luck, how important is it? What are the little nuances that you need to know in order to overcome these doubts that you have in yourself? That's what I find is that the fears and the doubts that we have, our mindsets, hold us back the most from creating that extraordinary life that we want. Whether it's with career, business, finances, relationships, all that stuff. So for me, finding these mindsets and really understanding them is so fascinating, and I think that they'll provide a huge value to you because when I started learning these mindsets, they really changed the success that I was getting in my life, and I'm positive that they'll do the same for you. So sign up and you'll be all set for that.